Hi guys, can you guys hear me? Hopefully you can with a bit of luck. Cool, that's a good start. At least you guys can hear me. Um, I'm a bit new to all this, guys, so you might have to bear with me. I've managed to somehow set three separate YouTube live videos, so going well so far. So we'll have to sort of hang in there and hope for the best. How is everyone this evening? Good. There's a bit of a lag on the chat. Good, Craig's here. How you doing, Craig? You all right? Five. Thanks, Tommy. I don't know what happened there. I was trying to play around the settings because I was trying to figure out how it all worked, and somehow, some way, I managed to set up five. So it looks like people will come into the right one, which is a good start. Hopefully, with a bit of luck, it shall sort itself out. Forever gardening, yeah, it's an understatement. Jesus, we don't have a garden actually, but Lindsay's been having me do all sorts of weird, wonderful stuff. I repaired a picture frame earlier. And then I managed to repair what else did I repair? A dining table. She wants me to fix a TV next. Gary's here. Hi, Gary. All right. Oh shit. There's a million live chats. That's funny. Oops, Daisy. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm just very bored, so I thought I'd come and try and do some sort of Q&A. Give you guys something to do. Gardening and decorating. It's just named just two. Gary, yeah, it's been Burgess. It's been a bit of a nightmare. I think most people like me are quite bored, sat at home. So something to do with an evening is certainly a welcoming subject for me. Anyway, I get very bored, sat at home. I went to work earlier to grab my laptop, which I went to drop off and pick up again. It was a bit of a nightmare, but long story short, I got the laptop in the end, which is nice. Does anybody have any questions to begin with? Hey, Steve's here. Hi, Steve. All right. Steve, you have to forgive me for my live stream. It's a bit on the dodgy side of things at the moment. I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah, definitely, Tim. It's hard work staying indoors. It isn't actually. It's not hard work. It's just emotionally hard work. It kind of messes with your head a bit. Just sat indoors doing not a lot. So trying to keep busy is probably the best thing. I've had my scope out of the box 5 or 6 times. I've taken it out of the box and put it back in the box again. I don't know why, but it's just giving me something to do. I pulled out the U scope earlier and turned it on. The battery life is still on actually. I haven't used that in about 3 weeks and it's still come on, which is quite impressive, I think. Mr. Hill's here. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
Hello, monkey. Go to bed. Busy day. Yeah, I don't know if you guys seen James's webinar earlier. That was really cool. I don't know if you guys have seen the new Pico 4425A, I believe it's called, with the new probe setup where it's a BNC, they call it BNC Plus, is what they've named it. Basically the probes themselves have 6 other wires, I believe, integrated into the actual connector that connects to the picoscope, in which it transfers data, I believe, to the scope, which informs it of what type of probe it is, and also it does automatic zero resets. So I've been told. They also bring out some resistance leads now. That you can measure resistance of stuff. I spoke to a friend of mine earlier about it and asked if we could do so for hybrid and EV guys. This would be for you guys. If you've ever been on James Dillon's calls, he mentions about using a milliometer to check the resistance of wiring. Now, a milliometer measures very, very, very fine resistance values, and you can actually with a bit of maths, you can actually figure out how many wires are in a wire, for example. So you can literally cut one wire at the time, and you will actually see a difference in resistance value. Whereas with a normal multimeter, you generally wouldn't. So I know Pico have brought that out. Obviously, they're using very similar principles, measuring voltage drop by applying current through the cable and seeing what they to measure the resistance value. So quite simple there, but I did ask Ben from Pico whether it would be sensitive and accurate enough to carry out milliohm measurements. They haven't had the chance to test it yet, but I thought that would be quite a cool feature if they could. I don't know how far behind the chat actually is. Weird, wonderful stuff. I repaired a picture frame earlier. Then I managed to repair what else did I repair? A dining table. So I was going to fix the TV next. Gary's here. Hi Gary, alright. Oh shit. Am I that far behind? Who knows? Yes, Dave, that's right. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, David. It's actually a really cool little video. I believe Steve. I believe Steve from Pico will be doing the. He's done the video of it, which is pretty cool. Go ahead and check that out. It's on Pico's YouTube channel here on YouTube, I believe. Something to sort of check out and have a look at. It's quite a cool little video. Shows you the an oversight of the features that currently it has. Any ideas when your next webinar will be? Missed your last one. Scott, yeah, I'm hoping to do a pressure analysis one. I did one for a couple of guys when we'd done a little bit of a get together down at Sean Miller's place, which was how to identify misfire using pressure pulse analysis. So the idea of that is if you have a faulty injector, but it's not a dead misfire, so the compensation is incorrect, as in you have a bit of a lumpy idle, or it's nearly a miss, but it's not quite a miss yet. So if you've done a cylinder drop test, for example, you wouldn't identify which cylinder was misfiring because it is still contributing, but maybe too much, for example. So the test you can use measuring exhaust pressure pulses is which cylinder is causing that phenomenon to take place, in which case we can use that information synced with an injector and knowing the firing order to identify which cylinder is actually our culprit. And then we can identify, is it actually is it engine mechanical related, is it injector related. We can simply, depending on the engine and the setup, we could swap injectors, for example, one to the other, and seeing whether that would actually move the fault. We would redo our test again to see whether it had moved. Guys, if I talk now, can you someone tell me when they can hear me? Good night, babe. About a 20-second delay. Okay. Thanks, Craig. Okay. I think the connection is good. It's just a case of I have set it up to be as quick as possible refresh wise, but I think it is just a delay of streaming. Can hear on the chat. Can hear on the chat. Can you guys hear me still? Yeah. Oh, okay, Tim. Cool. I can hear it live very occasionally. It takes a couple of seconds for sound to come through. Yeah, okay. It's again, I think it's just the way it's being streamed and buffered. I guess it's just a bit of a transfer issue there. Again, I think we have fiber and it's still not quick enough. I think our download speed is about 20 megs, something like that. So it's pretty good download speed. So I think the upload speed is about 10 megs. So it shouldn't be too much delay, but can't hear just a 20-second delay. Okay, cool. David, perfect here. It's everyone else's internet, David. That's what it is. It's not nothing to do with us, mate. So anyway, yeah. So I have that planned. I want to do that webinar. Hopefully this week with a bit of luck. I've already done the presentation. The PowerPoint presentation is already out from where I'd done it previously. A few of the guys have already seen it, so I might do some extra slides and add to it just to make it a bit more interesting for the guys that have already seen it. It will probably be filmed at the workshop because obviously we would need to put some cameras in the right places, stuff like that, so it makes it a bit more viewable. But yeah, we're planning on doing that one, and I have another one which I'd like to do. I have another one I've already written, which is on the sensor simulators. The difference is when you should use them, why you should use them, troubles you can get into using them, when you should or shouldn't turn them on, stuff like that. So another little, I know a lot of the guys out there that have bought sensor simulators. So for you guys, it should help out. There's a few videos on my YouTube currently with different. Can you shut the door, Linz? With different Sorry, my little girl's still up. With different faults using the sensor simulator to bypass test different faults and stuff on cars, which is quite handy. Hi Ryan, can I successfully simulate? Can detect sensor simulate 3 amps max? Barry, hi Barry. Yeah, so it can output the new one. The old one can't output any current. It's only it can only be used. The old one can only be used for sensor simulation, so it's a little bit limited with that. However, the newer one can carry out actuation tests, I guess. By you can obviously you can drive actuators. The maximum current rating is 4 amps, so up to 4 amps of current flow. It does have a protected circuit, so if you do go over the 4 amps, you won't blow up the tool. You do get an error on the screen that says overcurrent detected, I believe, if I remember rightly. And then in which case you just have to disconnect from the battery, reconnect it back up again, and then it will just be off it goes again. You won't be able to reapply current until you reset the device. At least that's my findings anyway. We need to arrange another get together. Yeah, Scott, that'd be cool. Yeah, for sure. I don't know who's next to sort of host or who would like to host next. But yeah, for sure, it'd be nice to get another meet together. Uh, I know a lot of the guys would probably be up for that. I don't know how long. Obviously, this is going to be going on for. I mean, obviously everyone's in the same boat at the moment, so we're all just kind of hanging in there, really. But I think if we look at maybe between the lines of what the government are put in place at the moment, where they've moved, obviously, I believe lorry MOTs, they've moved them for 3 months. I think, if I remember right, they're not doing them for 3 months. And then vehicle MOTs again for 6 months. So if you read in between the lines, I don't think normality will return until we're about 3 to 6 months in, perhaps. Um, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I think we still have a few months to sort of stick in there. Hopefully, we can sort of get back to the work at the end of this month. That would be nice. Obviously, making sure we're all working safely. But if I have to spend another month in this house, I think I'm going to drive myself crazy. Either that or have bags underneath my eyes from doing 50,000 YouTube videos. Yeah, Craig. The meats are they're quite sought after, I guess. Now, when we first started, I said when we Dean Andrew was the first guy actually who started it. It started off with about 12 of us to begin with, and now we have just over I think 250 members in that group. The problem is as well is that um, where there's so many people wanting to come to it, it makes it difficult for the guys. It makes it difficult for everyone to come because obviously we can only have so many people at a venue. Between 20 to 30 people per venue, because otherwise it gets too crowded and you just can't. The instructors just can't teach, and it's kind of gets turned into a lost day. The best part of it obviously is in the evenings when we go out for a meal and a bit of a drink and a few drinks, and everyone gets a bit happy Larry like we did in down Sean's neck of the woods. Suffolk. Yeah. You have to remind me, I don't know where Suffolk is in the country. Everything from me is north. So we're down in the south. Anything north of Bristol is north. Anything south of Plymouth is northeast, is west. That's a big north. Yeah, it is, Tim. Yeah. I did. Funny enough, you say that, Tim. I'm in Yeovil. Right. Yes, Craig. I know you're in Yeovil, buddy. If you're ever free anyway, sometime if you want to pop over to my place, we're only in Taunton, so we're only about half an hour, 45 minutes from you guys. If you want to pop over on a weekend and we can run through some stuff or that sort of stuff, then by all means pop on over and we can do that. Yeah. I got funny enough you should say that's a big north. They when we put on the event with Brandon, I called the Midlands um I called the Midlands up by Preston, which is a bit far past the Midlands by the sounds of things. So Stuart said, be looking at getting a Carscope Viso or Pico 4225s and paying out my own money. Doesn't want to spend big bucks, which would be better. Good question, Stuart. It kind of depends on whether I guess whether you're going to, well, you're going to be using it. The more you use it, the more you'll get used to it. The Carscope Viso, obviously being a two-channel, the same as the 4225. The benefits of the Viso are simply that it's mobile, and it has some really cool, quick, nice presets you can use. So if you're out mobile, if you're doing a lot of mobile work, that's a really handy tool to have. Um, if you're doing like pressure analysis or if you're doing in cylinder analysis, then you'll struggle with a Carscope Viso. But if you're doing general stuff like ignition analysis, perhaps, or coil current ramping, then you'll be fine with that sort of stuff. But if you get into like the real nitty gritty stuff, again, stuff like insulin, the pressure analysis, then you're going to struggle with a Carscope Viso. That'd be where the Pico will come into its own. But then, if you're going to start doing pressure analysis, you probably want to head towards four channels. Hi, sorry, mate. Hi. So, what's the most popular dealer tool? Good question. I think a lot of the guys, myself included, I love Otis. I think it's awesome, and it also covers four brands. So for bang for your buck, Otis is definitely for me the one I would reinvest in first of all. We have the Ford dealer tool, Otis, so the Volkswagen Audi Group dealer tool. We also have PSA, so Peugeot Citroen, and we also have the JLR stuff. But again, I use my Otis stuff probably at least four, maybe five times a week. We do a lot of programming for body shops as well, so that's where it sort of comes into its own. Being able to go into body shops and saying to them, we can program, your body, your airbag control modules, and your keys, for example, when they do lock sets, that sort of stuff. So it really does come into its own. Steering racks, that sort of stuff. BMW Oyster. Yeah, Tim. Yeah, BMW Ice does seem to be quite popular. I had BMW. I was borrowing James actually at the time, so I have used it. I find it a little bit tricky to navigate. I guess like any dealer tool until you start using it regularly. It is a good tool, and the test pans are really cool. in there you can get up wiring diagrams, and it will take you through actuation tests and all that sort of stuff. So it's actually, yeah, it is a very comprehensive tool. It's very, I would say it's similar to Otis, but with Otis you can get up wiring diagrams in Otis software. So that's a little bit of a tip if you guys, anyone is using Otis. If I'm diagnosing a vehicle and I don't think that aftermarket data is going to help me anyway, which is like a lot of the time, then what I'll do is I'll grab out Otis, I'll plug in Otis and pay for my token for an hour. As long as you as long as you don't disconnect from that vehicle by shutting down Otis and reopening it, you can actually navigate Irwin through Otis. So you can get all the wiring diagrams, component information, repair procedures, and all that sort of stuff. So you only pay £7 and you can have it for as long as you like, rather than paying £7 for 1 hour online on Irwin. But yeah, I agree. I agree with David actually. If you don't get a 4 channel, I think you will regret it. If your budget can stretch to that, I would advise getting a 4 channel, because I have a 2 channel, which most people are surprised to hear. Mine's only a little 2 channel Pico. I just got it back actually from the guys at Pico. It was a bit broken. It's now fixed, so that's nice of them. They sorted that out for me. PSA is the best. Yeah, yeah. PSA is the best, guys. No, French stuff is absolutely rubbish, and it is such a nightmare to work on. Unless you're familiar with it, it's not so bad. But when you first try to start navigating a portal, for example, and then their ridiculous wiring diagram program, you start to have a bit of a headache for sure. Uh, so impressive description, so cheap. Yeah, Adam, I don't, again, I'm not familiar too much with the subscriptions for BMW. I believe you can do it like an hour, which is probably how most of them do it, usually around 7 or 10 quid. And then you can do 1 day, which is usually around £25 roughly. And then you can do a month and a year. So I don't know if BMW do it similar or not. Lawson, the cost for Otis again, it's pay as you go. So 1 hour is £7, but you can. The trick with it is if you leave it connected to the vehicle or you don't shut down your session, then you can leave it on there for as long as you like. So say for example you diagnosed it on the £7 token you just bought. If you leave your laptop on charge and don't close down the session, you can then obviously order the part you need, and then say you needed programming the next day, you could then plug it in and program it without having to buy another token again. Yeah, I agree, Tim. It is nice to have a 4 channel scope, and more than that in some occasions. If you're doing, say, a V engine and you got 2 camshafts and a crankshaft, sorry, you got, I think actually, well, yeah, 2 camshafts and a crankshaft, but if you had, double overhead cam V engine, and you had a camshaft sensor for the intake exhaust on both banks and a crankshaft sensor, you got 5 sensors there, so that would be one use of having to have more than 4. The majority of tests that I generally do, I think, to see comparisons between sensors and actuators and stuff like that, generally 2 channels gets me by. There isn't a whole lot of times I've needed to use 4 channels, but there is times I've needed it. The only issue with using 2 channels is the setup time's a bit longer, because you have to, if you're doing like a double overhead cam engine, you have to obviously do a cam crank waveform, then do a intake cam crank waveform, and then do an exhaust cam crank waveform. So it adds to the time of the diagnosis, which is a bit of a pain, but. Yeah, interesting, Dave. Gary, sorry. Yeah, the only issue again, with the independent grounds, you can get caught out with that one if you're measuring a sensor, for example, because the ground shared internal to the scope. You could be getting if you're measuring a ground, you could be getting a good reading when obviously you haven't got a good ground, for example. Um, and as Gary's just saying there, that Pico aren't going to be um, doing a non-common ground scope. I've spoken to Ben as well about some of the stuff possibly that they could integrate into new Pico. If you think the WPSs, you have to charge them up. Um, Maybe on the cards that they might integrate that into the software and turn a WPS into being able to be charged via the BNC rather than having to keep charging it up all the time. We all come to the WPS because we probably use it not very often and it's always flat. So that would be a perfect example where the BNC Plus would come into its own. Hi, Keith. So the new Pico scopes have more noise than they had previously. I haven't used an older one. I've only used the newer ones. Again, mine's the 4225. I don't find mine too bad. I mean, I could plug it in for you now, and you'll see it might be that the light was okay at the time, but let's have a look. Give me 2 secs, guys. Hopefully, we don't lose any audio, visual. We might lose visual. That'd be about it. Okay, guys. I'm back. So yeah, I mean that's plugged in. 50 millivolts range, plus or minus 50 millivolts, and we're pretty on the zero. So at the moment it's not an issue for me. If we go down less than that, 100 millivolts, again, bang on the money. For me, really. Bring up zero line. Yeah, so I don't see the problem. I mean, I think some scopes do have an issue. The later ones have an issue, perhaps with noise, but the one I have at the moment has been perfect since they obviously repaired it. So I don't know whether there's a known issue with them. Perhaps I don't know, but mine actually works. It seems to work fairly well. Does any guys have any questions? So I spoke about I don't know. I'm trying to figure out who's in the chat, but there's quite a lot of guys in there. I mean, a couple of guys ask. I see it quite a lot, asking why. Why? Oh, hold on. Jesus, loads just come through. Evening or how much is this kit? The new Pico scopes have more noise. Yeah, how much is the Otis kit? So the Otis kit, you can buy a new one's just been released. It's actually the 6154A. I have a 6154. The price is very similar, I believe. It's about £800 for the interface itself. and then you have to set up your own accounts online on Irwin to get your Gecko ID and your security related stuff. That's the hardest part, doing all the online and subscription. Account creating. That's a pain in the ass, to be frank. But actually, if you do end up getting the tool, a friend of mine, John Morgan, does an outstanding training course on Otis. He done one for me and a couple of other guys, and it was awesome. It was really, really good. So if you are going to get the Otis tool, I'd recommend perhaps looking into that as well. Because the tool's no good if you can't use it. It's just a waste of time. Craig, using Pico 7. I've not used Pico 7. I opened it up a couple of times and then navigated through it and went back to 6. I mean, for me, when I'm doing diagnosis, I'm doing it as quick as I possibly can. So it's familiarity for me, because I'm familiar with the software in 6. It's easier for me to use it rather than having to navigate 7. But again, it's just a case of getting used to using the later version software. I haven't had a chance yet. Now will be a perfect time to go through that, but I haven't used Pico 7 as much as I'd like to currently, no. Soren, yeah, fire away. What's your question on your AutoSim Pro, buddy? So Kiefer's asking, in relation to the noise, would you find more on certain vehicles than others? I guess it depends on a lot of things. It depends on the atmosphere. Some workshop lights can actually cause interference on scopes. Some I've even seen a radio before cause interference on the scope. It generally depends on the component you're testing, I guess. If you're testing a motor, for example, like a starter motor, then it's going to be quite noisy. A lot of motors are generally quite noisy. That's what But there is options, obviously, in Pico. You can filter stuff, and you just got to be careful with what you're filtering to make sure you don't filter out the good stuff mixed in the signal. Where your leads, yeah, absolutely right. Where your leads are positioned, absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, Gary, that the course I done with John was phenomenal. It was really good. It was I want to say it was a 2-day course, if I remember rightly. He come to a friend of ours' garage, and we done it there. We stayed over the night, had a few beers, got really into it. Loads of information to take away from it. You also get I don't know if you're still doing it, but you also get a PowerPoint printout. And also, he gave us a hard drive with about 50 gigabytes of data. And this was all really good information. TPIs, all the information for doing learning, self-learning, that sort of stuff. Underbonnet LED screws up my mic sig. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite surprising. I had even extension leads. I had an extension lead coiled up. If you wind up an extension lead and turn it on and then connect it up, put it next to a radio, you'll hear the radio frequency will go all fuzzy and crackly. Obviously producing radio waves, I guess, but I don't know the science behind it. But yeah, I've seen that. So that's why I have to when I got my radio on, I have to make sure the extension lead's nowhere near it because it goes crazy. You go from having a nice little boogie to having maybe like the death song on from some hard rock group. On the subject of start and noise, as highlighted in James' webinar today. Yeah, guys, did you have a question, or was that just a blank statement, mate? What is the cost of John Morgan's training? I suppose it depends on travelling. Yeah, Lawson, I think Ooh, I don't want to say off the top of my head. I don't know his honest answer. The best person to do is ask him. I know obviously he factors fuel into it and hotel stay, but he'll come to you, which is quite handy. You know, if you've got 4 or 5 guys that use the tool and aren't proficient with it, then it's a good investment to make. You know, the guys will jump on there; they'll be a lot quicker. The investment you actually make will make them better at using that tool. It was a question, but I think I hit send early. Right, okay. Soren, are you still there? You said you had a question on the AutoSim Pro. You haven't asked it yet, unless you're still typing it. In which case, if it's that long, I don't know if I want to answer it. We'll start at noise. If you're scoping a cam sensor, say, use floating ground from ECU to filter out noise. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you've got a noisy, system voltage is generally quite noisy anyway, whether it be running or cranking or whatever it is. It's quite noisy generally. So yeah, I mean, if you want to try and clean the signal up on the ground side, you can connect to sensor ground. So use any sensor on the engine that's supplied a ground from the engine computer. Again, it's a filtered. I say filtered. I guess filtered is probably not the best word, but it is a filtered, I guess, ground supplied by the engine computer, and it does make a hell of a difference on signals. So Craig's questions: what resources do I use for self-learning? Good question. So I'm a lover of YouTube. I started doing diagnostics maybe I'd say 5 years ago, maybe something like that. And I was quite sad, really. It come around. So this is the story of how I really got into it. I was chucked in the deep end in Citroen and asked to diagnose a blower motor fault. And they said, the blower motor didn't work on any speed. Why does it not work? So anyway, I'm there testing away. I tested the blower motor. The blower motor worked okay. On the bench, absolutely fine. And then I come to the conclusion that it was the resistor that was at fault. And if you looked at the diagram, the resistor had power that come from the underbonnet fuse box. The underbonnet fuse box had a voltage drop internal to it when current was applied through the circuit. So when I removed the blower motor from the circuit and tested it individually, I didn't take into account voltage drop, from current flow. So I got my ass kicked there. So after I got my ass kicked there and got it wrong, and ended up calling, I think it was a resistor at the time, and it cost the customer unnecessary money. I sort of went home and thought, there must be a simpler way to do this. There must be a way to diagnose faults. So I jumped on YouTube and I typed in, I think, voltage drop at the time, and I come across Screwdinger's box, I believe it is, something like that. And I started watching his videos, and then I watched about 15, 20 of his videos, just learning stuff, and then putting it into practice at work. And then I got a recommendation come up about Paul Danner's YouTube channel, and I tried to watch some of his videos, and at first I actually couldn't get on with it. I thought it was too in detail, so I stopped watching them for maybe a couple of weeks, and then I went back to it, and I got past the whole it being too complicated part, and really focused on listening it. And I watched probably one scan down a video every night for about 6, 7 months, I reckon. So I've probably seen his whole YouTube list easily. But anyway, going back to self development, anything and everything. Read factory information, operate descriptions of operations from how things operate from the factory, i.e., you know, Audi information, how their systems operate, all their AdBlue systems. All the information is out there. You just got to find it. So I usually try and stick to factory information, and YouTube. YouTube's really good for self learning, and it's free, which is the best part. Oh. So, sorry, Scott's gone, is he? Sorry, Scott, got a shower. Thanks for your time, man. Sorry, Scott. See you, mate. Sorry, I'm a bit late there. AutoSim Pro Pulse using ball. What is it? What is a floating ground? Good question. Pulse using ball light. So going to use. Yeah, sorry. So, just to answer your question quickly, so when you're trying to do the pulse output using the P out, so that's a power out. It depends on your settings. You can set it up to do it automatically, or you can set it up to do it manually. I'll see if I can get a video together to fire over to you to show you how to do it automatically, so you don't have to keep pressing the button. Screw Ninjas, yeah, that's right, David. Yeah. Yeah, definitely the pulse function. Yeah, it can be used on signal out and power out, obviously depending on what you're doing. Um, but yeah, there is a way to do it automatically and manually. I'll do a quick video capture because I have it here, and I'll fire it over to you because it'll be easier to show you actually on the tool rather than trying to step through it on here. South Main Auto, yeah, I watched. So again, after watching Paul's huge library, I then started to look at other people's. So I've looked at South Main Auto. I've watched a lot of his YouTube channel. I've also watched Ivan Pine Hollow. I've watched his YouTube channel. Keith Stefazio, I've watched his. LM Auto Repairs as well. I've watched his. Quite a good channel as well. Screwdinger's cat, is it dead or alive? Love some mystery. Quantum physics. I've not seen that one, Simon. Sorry. I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Screwdinger's cat. Yeah, it's a good channel. I really enjoy it. I think he's just done a recent couple of videos out about the virus. Actually, funny enough, the coronavirus. I think it's about a 2 hour long video. I haven't seen it myself, but it must be quite detailed, I assume, for it to be 2 hours long. on my wish list. Yeah, it's a good tool. The RoSim Pro. Do I? How often do I use it? It's one of them tools I bring to every single job with me because it's one of them tools that you can't use another tool to do what it does. That makes any sense. So what I'm trying to say is there's only certain things that that tool can do that you can't do with another tool very easily without actually making it yourself. You know, the versatility of it is absolutely brilliant. I know, for example, you know the older one doesn't actually produce any AC sine wave, so you can't produce inductive style wheel speed sensors. But obviously, the new one you can. So that's a bonus in itself. You know, if you're doing an older style vehicle that has a inductive style wheel speed sensor, so that's one that's a 2-wire sensor that produces its own voltage, which is sent back to the computer, ABS ECU in most cases. The old one cannot produce AC sine waves. The new one obviously can, which is one of the things that we requested to make sure it was in the later model. Yeah, I did see he does get a lot of I don't know what they call him in America, hacks. I think he does get a lot of crap on his YouTube channel. It's sad, really. The guy's pretty, really clever, and I think he actually is an automotive professional. He I believe he's a director at a company, if I remember rightly, and he does that as like a side job. But he's got really good at it, obviously. Oh, he's a scientist, is he, Mike? Blimey, I didn't know that. Did anyone, whilst we're here, I know I mentioned it in my Facebook post. Does anyone know or not know why you should use an attenuator? Or everyone here pretty good with it? I know I've seen some big names, so I didn't want to show it if it wasn't necessary, I guess. But if there's people here that were interested in it, then we can do why to use attenuators, obviously. Protect scope from excessive voltage. Yeah, absolutely right, Gary. Yeah, absolutely right. So I have one here. Whoa, that close. Can't get numb ass there. So that there, I don't know if you guys can see that very well. That there is an attenuator. That's a 10. That is a. Can you see it? Upside down. No, that's upside down. God knows. That's a 10-to-1 attenuator. So how it works is basically if you had 10 volts, so you have your scope like that, and then you'll plug this in first. So it goes like that, and now this protects your scope. So basically, the maximum voltage input into a picoscope, the later generation is 200 volts. The earlier generation was only 100 volts. So we can use a 10-to-1 attenuator. So this steps it down by 10. So if I had 10 volts inputted in here, this would make it 1 volt. Okay, so if I had 100 volts in here, that would make it 10 volts. If my maths is right. Yeah, absolutely right. So obviously you have to. So in the Pico software, when you're using attenuators, I'll just quickly show this. The camera's going to go, guys, because I can't do the camera and the screen at the same time. So the camera's going to go quickly. I'll quickly show the guys how to set up a channel if you're using an attenuator. Again, the times when you'll use this, it's interesting. The times when you'll use this is when you're taking high voltage measurements. So if you're measuring fuel injectors, for example, or ignition coil primary circuits, that's a very good time you're going to want to use one of these. Ignition coil primary circuits can spike up to as much as 400 volts and more in some cases. So you want to make sure you're using one of these guys, otherwise you're going to burn your scope out. So how to set it up, you basically obviously plug it in here like this, as you would normally. Let's put that in there. As you would normally, just plug it in, BNC connector one end and a female BNC the other end. Sorry, male BNC the other end. Then you go up into your probes tab. So in Pico software, go up to your probes tab, and then we want to select the probe we're using. So currently we're going to hit this little arrow that will give us a drop down menu. And we want to scroll down until we find our 10-to-1 attenuator. We want to select that, and then you can now see the voltage range goes from 0 to 400 volts input, maximum input. And obviously you can change this. Oh, sorry, you can't. So obviously, you know, that's the maximum input voltage you can actually get, you know. But you have to make sure you are telling your scope you're using attenuator, otherwise it throws out the voltage readings, and then you get some really weird and wonderful voltage readings. Yeah, so Soren's asked, do you have to, so if you have a cop tester, which is, if you guys have one of these, which looks like a beating stick, these are basically used, if you haven't ever seen one before, to read inductance. So when a coil collapses, it produces inductance into the secondary winding. So what we can use with these is we can actually detect that phenomenon taking place. You basically put this paddle here, that flat paddle, on top of the coil, and then you can see intrusively secondary ignition event taking place. So do you have to use an attenuator with one of these? No, you don't. Now you don't, because it's non-intrusive. You're not taking a direct measurement. If you was sticking a probe into the back of the coil to measure the primary, then you have to use an attenuator 100%, otherwise you'll damage your scope. Yeah, no worries, Soren. I hope that cleared some things up. If you're not sure, I can run through it again. But yeah, it's quite straightforward. Again, you know, whatever. If you're measuring something that's got high voltage, if you're not sure, I'd recommend using one. It's not gonna. It's better to be safer than sorry. I measured a fuel injector on my BMW. It's a 320i, but it has piezoelectric fuel injectors. They're not solenoid. It's a GDI vehicle, so it's got gasoline direct injection. When I was quite new to scoping at the time, and I connected it up to the fuel injectors, and it just kept saying channel over range all the time, and I'm getting a bit worried, so I'm going up, and then it says channel over range. So I'm at 100 volts so far, and it's still saying channel over range. So up again to 150, and it's still saying channel over range. So I'm getting a bit worried at this point. So I got to 200 volts, and it says 185 volts peak voltage on a fuel injector on a GDI for the piezoelectric injector. So I was quite lucky. I didn't use one of these at the time. I didn't. I misunderstood the vehicle I was testing on pretty much. I thought it was a solenoid type injector. I didn't pay much attention to it, and nearly cost me my scope. Luckily enough, it didn't, and it's okay. Sure, thanks for coming, mate. Appreciate it. Has anyone had any issues with that low amp clamps? Yeah, I find mine doesn't read terribly accurately. Lower current ranges. I probably anything below maybe an amp. It starts to get a bit um, inaccurate. It just doesn't read perfectly well. Obviously, generally, if I'm doing stuff under an amp, I usually put an ammeter in line because even using amp clamps, it gets a bit difficult unless it's really, like I say, an amp, probably less than that. It's probably about 300 milliamps, I reckon. Put an amp meter in line, but yeah, I find they're a bit sensitive to lower currents. And I'm guessing that's what you're getting at, Gary. Question on Otis. Yeah, Storm, what's up? Not that, I was using it on a solenoid diesel injector. It was only detecting about 2 amps. Oh, right, that's interesting. I've never had an issue with it detecting current flow on injectors before. Um, Strange. Yeah, that's strange. Really strange. Was the Have you checked the batteries, Gary? I know battery. Obviously, battery power can have a big effect on them. Yeah. So that was fine. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know what. Obviously, whoever engineered the amp clamp, I don't know what threshold they put the voltage at to say it was low. Did you measure the battery out of interest, Gary, when you took it out to see whether? I think they're a 9 volt battery, aren't they? I believe. Did you measure it to see if it was 6, 7 out of interest? Yeah, thanks for clearing that up, Steve. Yeah, Vass was the older PC for Otis. Again, Steve's probably a better man for Volkswagen related questions. Oh, so okay. It would have been interesting to measure the voltage to see what the threshold was. Um, you may find that it might say 6 volts is okay, and obviously 6 volts out of 9 volts is one third of the it's 2/3 of the capacity actually working. So it would have been interesting to know what the voltage was. Mm, yeah, a bit of a weird one that. I know my one's taking some beating over the time. The cable's starting to fray. A bit crap. There you can see that. So I put mine back in the case every time because I do a lot of mobile work, and the cable's starting to fray where I wrap it up. Uh, hey, I tell you what, Steve. I don't know if you've ever come across it. I actually spoke to Che about it as well. I had a Audi A3, I believe it was, either an A3 or an A4. It was a 19 plate vehicle, and it had a new steering rack fitted to it. Now, using Otis, it takes you through obviously doing the coding, all the rest of it, basic settings. After it done the basic settings, it had a permanent DTC for end stops not learned. Now, no matter what I'd done and how many times I've redone that whole procedure, it would not learn the end stops. And there's actually a TPI that states you have to use the manual mode and a login code and do it a manual way rather than doing it through Otis through the test plan. So if anyone ever gets that, Audi A3 19 plate had a fault code after I had a new steering rack fitted. I programmed it, couldn't get rid of the end stop learn not done. We had to use VCDS in the end because the login code that I received from the TPI was actually wrong. So we had to use VCDS in order to get the login code to then do the process. So Otis, again, absolutely fantastic tool, but if you haven't got VCDS on that occasion, you are screwed because without that login code, you obviously can't do it manually. That was one I found. Again, that was a body shop car, which I thought was quite an interesting one. Yeah, I just even the TPI, the login code it gave you for the TPI was wrong. I even spoke to John Morgan about it in the end, and he even gave me a login code out of the TPI, and it didn't work. You had to. It was a completely different login code. I made a note of it and I put it down at work, um, but the TPI login code was completely wrong. Cool, thanks, Adam. I appreciate it, mate. Take it easy, bud. And Tim, mate. Thanks very much, mate. See you later, bud. Are you doing updates for VCDS now, Volkswagen brought it over? Updates? I don't know what you mean, mate. I actually don't have VCDS. I do a lot of trade work for a lot of garages, luckily for me, and they actually have VCDS on the latest version. So when I need to, I just borrow theirs. Yeah, I don't know if I was meant to, Steve. I just updated my Ford software, IDS 17.03, I believe, and FDRS just got updated as well. So I updated both of them today. Hopefully, there's no issues. No doubt there probably will be. Yeah, thanks, Craig, mate. See you later, buddy. Oh, lovely. Brilliant. Just what I need. I don't know. Again, I don't use VCS a whole lot. The only time I find I need it is when I need to do a login on a vehicle for a function, for example, and I just don't have the login code. So, most of the time I'm doing a diagnosis, I'm using aftermarket equipment, Alltel, for example, stuff like that. It's not very often I'll use Otis for a diagnosis unless the information I need for that vehicle I know isn't going to be on the likes of auto data, all data and stuff like that. So I'll use Otis only for the feature that you can go on Irwin and get the diagrams and the component information for for the £7 for as long as you like. That's generally why I use Otis a lot more recently, probably than before. Please need more about pulse sensors, first look sensors. Yeah, sure. I mean, what do you want to know? I can do some more videos. There again, I got one planned. Hopefully, which will show how to identify a misfiring cylinder. Gary's quite up on that. I believe he knows it quite well. Security. Yeah, what's up? What's up? Yeah, sure. Do what we're saying. Don't update your VCDS. Ryan, do you have to pay subscriptions to run Otis without logging to Irwin? Do you have to pay subscription? Yes. So you pay £7 anyway to use the software for an hour, but with that hour you can also get information from Irwin. So it pays for the £7 to get the information. Alone, if you are struggling to do the diagnosis, the information on Irwin generally will see you through. But obviously to get it you have to pay for it. It's £7. But it'd be better to have the dealer tool connected to the car, pay the £7, and then you get the best of both worlds. You get the dealer tool on the car, and you also get the the dealer information for that specific vehicle. Can you please tell my mate happy birthday? His name is happy birthday. I am not going to try and pronounce the name, but happy birthday. If I try and pronounce that, I'll make myself look very silly. Yeah, I think there's different, as Craig was saying, different software versions out there that you can download and go back to, stuff like that. A friend of mine just messaged me actually about the U scope. I don't know if anyone's seen it. I've got one here. The battery. I haven't used this thing in about 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, I reckon. So it is tiny, tiny little thing. Literally fits in the palm of your hand. Power button on the side. Flip it around. Oh, that's right. Oh god. So yeah, it's the battery life on it at the moment. It's still got 3/4 of a battery, um, which is quite amazing. Really, I haven't used it again for 3 or 4 weeks, and it's still loads of battery life left in it. Wicked bit of kit, absolutely brilliant. Best place to get overlay chart. The best place to get the overlay chart. Very good question. I know Brandon has a link to it. I could probably get it for you, Craig, if you give me a message. There is it's a American site you buy it from, but I may have one you can have in my files somewhere. Oh, Dave, Windows 10 free, yeah. Yeah, there's again, I think it's in the App Store, I believe, isn't it, Dave? Or Windows App Store, yeah, that's right, yeah. What kind of speed resolution? I believe it goes down to 1 millisecond time base. Let's have a look. So time base, maximum time base is, oh no, it goes in microseconds. So 1 nanosecond is the maximum time base. Maximum voltage input is 40 volts. What was the other question? Kind of speed, resolution. So yeah, the screen actually, the resolution of the screen is absolutely, it's brilliant. You have to hold it and see it to see how good the resolution is. But the screen is crystal clear. It is, again, it's a really, really cool scope. You can see injector pintle humps in it. It's that clear. It is a really good scope for what it is. You know, a little handheld thing like this. It takes 5 minutes to whip that thing out of your pocket, get it ready to go, rather than having to get the old one out. Get the Pico out. Yeah, Craig, I have got one, mate. Gary's just offered there. If you're struggling to get one, just let me know. I'll fire mine over to you. I do have one. Oh fuck. The only thing I will say with the U scope, which is a bit of a pain, is that you need a special connector in order for it to for the leads to work. So when you buy the scope, you get a set of leads with it, and they come with a special type of connection, and then they're just attached to a set of normal banana leads. But the actual connection into the scope there is obviously a lot different than like BNC, for example, or banana jack ends. I don't know why they've done that, but you can buy attachments that you can use in order to convert it. The attachment leads are about £6. They're nothing. Cheaper than Pico and faster than Diabox then. Can use attenuators. Yeah, so you can use amp clamps with it, attenuators. You know, you can use, it's basically like a mini pocket scope. It's only a single channel scope, so you can only measure one thing at once, but then it's one of them, it's a quick first look scope. You know, if you've got an injector fault code, circuit code, you can use that, go each one individually, and you know, you could well find your issue using that scope rather than having to pull out the P code, get it all set up, etc. but you can use amp clamps on it. You know, you can with the leads, obviously. In the kit, you get the actual conversion leads and stuff like that. But you get an amp clamp in the kit as well, and a secondary pickup probe as well, so you can measure, ignition. We'll end up like Keith DeFazio, multi-tool and use scope in our pockets. Yeah, so when I go to my diag jobs, I bring it comes in a little neat box. So I bring my Pico box and I leave this in the lid, and then I'll grab this out first, because what I found I was doing was I bring my Pico with me and I would bring this, but I put them in separate boxes, and I'd always grab out my Pico first. So what I've done or learned to do now is I leave this in the lid, so then I have to see this first before I get the leads for my Picos, and I remember to pull this one out first if I can, rather than spend the time wasting around setting up my Pico scope. But I've put a few pictures up of captures of this one. It's really good. The screen is actually really impressive on it. Wouldn't up like Keith, yeah. So anyway, I don't know. I think I'm glad you guys found the right YouTube video. I don't know what happened there. I managed to set up about six, I think, six live at 8 o'clock. So I don't know what happened to the other recordings, whether they're recording over this one or what's going on. So that'll be interesting to figure out in a little while. Oh, I got some news as well actually for you guys. Um, we've been working away in the background, trying to get some courses for you guys. Some courses that other instructors are running, a bit like what Brandon was doing. So we have a few coming up. Some good ones, some really good ones. We've got a GDI one coming up. We have a hybrid and EV one coming up, which is going to be really good. And then we have an EPROM programming one, J2534, so pass through programming. We also will be including in that bench programming as well, reading and writing, so we can read and write processors. So if you're doing a if you've got an ECU that doesn't communicate via OBD, you can bench it and read the data from that ECU, and then copy it onto another ECU, and then you can have you can basically clone that ECU, so you don't have to, just because you haven't got communication via the OBD, doesn't necessarily mean that the ECU isn't transferring data. So at the moment, yeah, there's a couple of courses coming out that I have in the pipeline, so that's the three main ones at the moment. We've got a GDI one coming up, and we've also got hybrid and EV, and again that programming course, the programming one, I'm really looking forward to myself. Yeah, Gary. So I won't be teaching them. I have so basically I'll start again. I got quite a few contacts, obviously in the US, for instructors. These instructors are the best, or considered some of the best instructors in the US. So their courses have been taught lots and lots. So they're not out of the blue. They have been well thought out and taught. I won't be teaching them again. It is the guys who will flying back in, like we did with Brandon flying in from America, and then rerun and running them courses. It's the way forward. Yeah, it just gives the guys, we're coming to you, and it's something a bit different. Everyone has a different way of teaching. A friend of mine recently said to me that you could do a GDI course 3 times with 3 different instructors and pick something up every single time because each instructor teaches differently, and sometimes the subjects change as well. Make sure you go to Ireland with them. I need a Guinness fix. Yeah, so yeah, so Gary, it will be the same as before, most likely. It will be a couple over in Ireland, 2 over in Ireland, then we'll jump back to the UK like we did before. But hopefully the planning will be a bit better on my part, so we ain't going. We're not going north then south then North Ireland again then up to Scotland. We're starting the south, head to the north of Ireland, and then up to Scotland. So there won't be that whole 8 hour travel to do this time round. But live and learn. He's only a fucking haircut. Does anybody want to come and cut my hair? I'm sick to death. I might ask Lynn's to put a bowl over my head and just go all the way around. That's what my mum used to do to me when she sent me to school like that. Yes, Richard. Yeah, it'll be the same kind of price, buddy. Um, yeah, it'll be pretty much. It will probably be identical pricing structure. I expect. Again, there's still things to be sorted out, but that will be very similar pricing structure. Richard, any news on Phil's probes? Yes, they have them. They stuck a load back for me. They said that they'd send them over, but they said they send them. Sorry, Gary. They said they send them over, but I didn't want to get them sent over and then not be able to pick them up. So I'm waiting for this sort to die down a bit so that I can make sure we can actually get hold of them and then go from there. But yeah, they have. They got some new scopes back for me, terminal kits, pulled down the books, some Phil's probes, some red test lights, the ones that Paul Downing uses, some other different probes and stuff like that. So yeah, we have got a few things coming, but I don't want to get them here yet until everything's died down. Do a Neil Turner and a Robocop it. I'm sure Lindsay would love that, Craig. Would I add any more locations of enough interest? Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's difficult. If there's enough interest, by all means, again, it can just be added into the planning, but obviously we need to know that ahead of time so we can plan around it, obviously. So what we will likely do when we're closer to the time is when we're announcing dates and stuff like that, we'll get a feel for interest again up and down the country and Ireland and see who does and doesn't want to come, and then we'll make the plan around that. There's no point us saying we're going over to Ireland or we're going to Scotland if there isn't going to be anyone there. So we'll make the plans around where the guys are coming from, or where they want us to go. Sorry. Yeah, Gary, I'll stick one. I'll stick one away for you, mate. I think we got 10 on order. I believe it is. Well, 10 saved for us back at AES. What was the time? Jesus, 9:30. Did you Oh, my phone keeps pinging. Tim got bored already. Organising like a Super Saturday for the UK. That's not a bad idea, actually. That's quite. Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about it, but it's not impossible. I guess it. The issue is, Gary. I think is a lot of the so the way Super Saturdays run is, you have a combination of a lot of different instructors all coming together to teach. The problem I think we'll find in the UK is a lot of the instructors in the UK don't get on very well, perhaps, or there's water under the bridge. Um, that Water under the bridge. They haven't got a good collaboration. I find UK instructors. There's a lot of big UK instructors that just don't gel very well. It would be cool to get them all in a room and yeah, absolutely right. Run 4 or 5 courses in a day on different subjects, but I can't see it happening. Kids in bed, record timing, record timing. Yeah, I would like to do something like that. It would be cool, but I just don't think you'd have to. A lot of people would have to agree to it, and I don't think the people that would need to agree to it to make it worthwhile for the customers or the trainer. Sorry, the candidates. I don't think that people will agree to it. I just think there'll be too much animosity there, and people it will just fall flat on its face before it even gets going. That's why it's nice to work with the guys in the US because there's no I don't know what the word is. I won't say competition, but they're all forthcoming and they will work with each other, which is really good and really nice. Yeah, I guess that's true, Tim. Yeah, I guess the US is quite big. Instruct each other, bit of scope and politics, etc. Yeah, yeah, I guess Tim, you're right. US is quite big compared to the UK, so their instructors over there have a lot more room, I guess, to spread out, so they can take different parts of the continent, sorry, and maybe, but then even that, there's a lot of really good American trainers, top class American trainers, and they are really good friends, and the majority of them are. There is some arguments between some of them over there, but the majority of it, that everyone gets on really well. Instruct each other, a bit of scope and pulse. Yeah, that's kind of similar to what we do at the moment, Dave. With our little get-togethers, we have 4 or 5 different people, candidates. Sorry, um, instructors stand up at the front with 20 or 30 people in the room, and we all just teach each other. Some people are better at some things than others. Adam Critchley, for example, he's really good with a sensor simulator. So he could do a 3 or 4 hour presentation on that. Be brilliant. Jim Morton, yeah, it'd be nice to get Jim over here. Actually, I think he would love to come over in time. I definitely think he will come over in time, but we'll see. We'll see how things plan out. Hopefully, he does come over. It'd be nice to see Jim again. Last time I seen him was at Super Saturday. reminds me actually, is anyone going to the get together in at the end of May on the 28th or 29th of May at Paul Danner's school? Brandon's doing a pressure pulse, his pressure analysis class at Paul's school, with Paul obviously being there. Is anyone else going to that? I booked the flights, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, it sticks through and it doesn't get cancelled. Yeah, it's in, where is it? Pittsburgh. It's in Pittsburgh. I'm sure it's the 28th. Yeah, that's the problem. I booked my flights before all this, Gary. So I booked the flights and the hotel and everything before, probably months ago now. I think it was back in November. I think I booked my flights and hotel for it. So yeah, way before all this nightmare. So it's knocking everyone for six financially at the moment. I don't know. I hope you stick it out and you're okay. I mean, a lot of guys are getting the government's grants, whether it be 25 grand or 10 grand, which is nice. So hopefully, hopefully no one goes under. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be people going under, and I don't think that as much as you try and help them, there's only so much you can do. If the money's not there and the banks won't loan to them, then there isn't much more you can do really. To help them out. There's only so much you can do, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, Dave. Thanks for coming, mate. Good night. Saying that, I think it might be time, guys, to hit this on the head. We're an hour and a half in. Jesus, that went quick. Does anybody have any more questions before we shut the live stream down? Or I try and figure out how to shut the live stream down. Cool. ATS, yeah, good question. All right, Dario, see you later, mate. ATS, yeah, good question. I do have a scope, actually, funny enough. I have an ATS eScope Elite 4 waiting for me in the US, which is one of the main reasons I want to go over it in May as well, to pick up off of Brandon. He has it at the moment. It's a tablet-based 4-channel scope. Absolute wicked bit of kit. The words, cheers, Ryan, catch up again. Steve. Thanks, Ryan. Good night, guys. Cough, cough. SY Diagnostics channel, though. Yeah, give Steve a shout out. SY Diagnostics. If If you're looking for any content on YouTube, SY Diagnostics, cough cough. Gotta try it, yeah, that's it. Gotta plug it somewhere. But yeah, Garrett, I do. I got to go over there and get the scope from them. I want to bring it back and play with it myself, and then see what it's like back here. I have been told by Brandon actually that they just started to be able to use Pico files, so you can save a cam crank waveform on Pico, and then you can actually use that on an ATS scope now. Yeah, cheers, Richard. I'm off as well in a sec, mate. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. Cheers, sorry, mate. Thanks very much, buddy. Cheers, Craig, mate. Take it easy, mate. Cheers, Lawson, mate. Take it easy. God bless, mate. Thanks, Lee, mate. Thanks for coming. Take it easy, bud. Don't want to drink too much beer. Yeah, take it easy, Gary, mate. We'll speak soon, no doubt. See you, Carl. Thanks for coming, mate. Yeah, I'll get it uploaded soon, Steve, and I got a few bits to run through first just to make sure that it's okay as far as content wise, and then we'll get it we'll get a date booked in and a time and go from there. It'll probably be on Zoom, I think, rather than YouTube, unless I try and figure out how this actually works properly. Thanks, Niles, your mate. Take it easy, pal. How many people left in the chat? Does it tell me? $11. Right, guys, I'm going to shoot now. So huge thanks to all of you guys for coming. If you've got any more questions in the meantime, just fire me a message. I got the barbecue finished, lol. You actually made it then, Greg, or did you burn it in the end? You say finish, you didn't say how. Anyway, I'm going to shoot, guys. Thanks for coming. I hope you have a great evening. No doubt I'll catch up with you soon. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to fire me a message. If I can do anything in the meantime, content-wise, fire me a message and I'll do my best to do it whilst we have some free downtime. And it will also give me something to do, which is nice. So take it easy, chaps, and catch up very soon.